Good evening and welcome to the February 23rd, 2026 meeting of the Menlo Park Planning Commission. I am Chair Andrew Eric, and I thank you for joining us this evening, either remotely or here in council chambers. Established by state law, our city's planning commission is composed of 7 volunteer residents of Menlo Park, appointed to 4-year terms by the city council. Our planning commission is not a policy setting body, that's the city council. We are a policy implementing body. We review development proposals for compliance with our city's general plan and zoning ordinance, which can both be found on the city's website. The commission also reviews city-initiated land use planning projects, such as general plan updates and zoning ordinance amendments. The commission reviews development proposals requiring a use permit, architectural control, a variance, minor subdivision, as well as the environmental reviews associated with those projects. When applicable, the Planning Commission reviews below market rate or BMR housing agreements associated with these applications. The Commission is the final decision-making body for these applications unless appealed to the City Council. The Commission also serves as the recommending body to the City Council for major subdivisions, rezoning, conditional development permits, zoning ordinance amendments, general plan amendments, and environmental reviews associated with those projects. If applicable, the Planning Commission reviews and makes recommendations on BMR agreements associated with these projects. Staff in our city's planning division are responsible for processing development applications, as well as for both implementing and amending the general plan, zoning ordinances, and related policies in order to further the goals of the city. Staff is also responsible for the agenda of regular Planning Commission meetings and for prioritizing what and when agenda items or development applications come before the Planning Commission. Planning commissioners do not have any ability to place items on the agenda for these meetings. We encourage your active participation, whether you are an applicant or interested member of the public, and there will be an opportunity to speak publicly for each specific agenda item, as well as for general public comment. With that, I will call the roll. Commissioner Baruzzi.
Present.
Commissioner Doe.
Here.
Commissioner Farrick.
Here.
Commissioner Schindler.
Here.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Present.
I am Chair Eric. I am also present, meaning we have 6 commissioners in chambers, which is a quorum. 1 commissioner is absent tonight. The next item on our agenda is reports and announcements. Ms. Sandmeyer, are there any staff reports or announcements this evening?
Good evening, Chair Eric and Commissioners. I don't have any updates, but I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sandmeyer. Do commissioners have any reports or announcements of their own? Okay, then we will move to item D, the public comment portion of our agenda. Under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. You are not required to provide your name, district, or city of residence, but it is helpful. The commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Please know that if you are here tonight to comment on one of our agenda items, you will have a chance to speak when we get to that item in the agenda. So to learn how to participate, I am going to turn to our clerk this evening. I'm sorry. Is it Mr. Toy? Mr. Ball. Okay. I'm going to turn to our clerk this evening, Mr. Ball, to provide instructions and open the public comment period. Please go ahead, Mr. Ball.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Commission, Assistant Planner Matthew Ball. During the public comment period, members of the public will have an opportunity to share their comments or questions remotely by clicking on the hand on your screen, upon which staff will introduce you and activate your microphone. For those calling into tonight's meeting, please click *9 on your keypad to notify staff you have a comment. If multiple people are speaking from the same account, please let us know at the beginning of your time, and we will make sure each person gets a chance to speak. For those participating in person, please fill out a speaker card located in the back of the room and hand it to me.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Do we have any requests to speak?
Let's see, we do not have any comment cards or hands on Zoom, but we can wait a moment longer if you'd like.
Okay, thank you very much. I will now close the public comment portion of our agenda. The next agenda item is our consent calendar. Tonight, there are 2 items on the consent calendar. Mr. Ball, could you once again please provide instructions regarding public comment on this agenda item and open the public comment period for the consent calendar?
If you're joining remotely, please click the hand icon, or if you're calling in, press star 9 on your keypad. Staff will call on speakers and unmute you. For those here in person, please complete a speaker card at the back of the room and hand it to me. We don't have any public commenters at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ball. I'm going to close the public comment period for the consent calendar. Would any of my fellow commissioners like to pull any items from the consent calendar this evening? In that case, would any commissioners like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar? Yes, Commissioner Doe.
Actually, thank you, Chair. Can I ask that the items be voted on separately?
Sure.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doe, would you like to do the honors then of making a motion to approve item E1?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve E1, the December 15th minutes.
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Schindler. Seeing no other comments, I will call the vote for item E1. Commissioner Baruzzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Doe,
Abstain?
Commissioner Farrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Schindler,
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Yes.
I am also a yes. That makes 5 yes votes, 1 abstention, and 1 absent. That item passes. We will move on to I would entertain a motion for item E2. Commissioner Schindler.
I'll move that we approve item E2 as noted in the staff report. I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioners Schindler and Baruzzi. Seeing no other comments, I will go ahead and call the vote on item E2. Commissioner Baruzzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Doe,
Yes?
Commissioner Farrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Schindler,
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Yes.
I am also a yes. That is 6 votes in favor with 1 absent. Item E2 passes. We will now move on to item F1, our first public hearing item. This agenda item is regarding a use permit at 636 Cambridge Avenue. At this public hearing, the commission may consider and adopt a resolution to approve a use permit to demolish an existing single-story, single-family residence and construct 2 new 2-story single-family residences, each with an attached 1-car garage on a substandard lot with regard to minimum lot width in the R2 low-density apartment zoning district. The proposal would also include 2 attached accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, 1 for each proposed single-family residence, which is a permitted use and not subject to discretionary review. Additionally, there are 3 heritage trees proposed for development-related removal. Determine this action is categorically exempt under CEQA guidelines section 15303's class 3 exemption for new construction or conversion of small structures. I believe the project planner for this item is Mr. Toy. So Mr. Toy, I will turn it over to you for any updates to the staff report.
Thanks, Chair Eric. We don't have any updates to the staff report at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe we have members of the applicant team here who would like to make a presentation. I apologize. I think we have to wait until the microphone works so that the public can hear.
Hello. Okay. Okay.
That
Good
is-
evening, Mr. Chair, Mr. or Mrs. Vice Chair, other members of the commission, Brian, and everybody else on the Zoom. So my name is Tito, and I'm the homeowner for this project. And we wanted to present a few slides. Jeannie is the architect. She wanted to come in person, but she's down with the flu. So we just need to excuse her from here. And let's see how we can roll. So we wanted to present a few things in the slides that is not there in the commission packet, because I think all of you already had the opportunity to see the packet. So let's see a few things that will give you a better picture of where things are coming from. You go to the next slide. So this is, for example, what we have right now. And what we have right now is a home from the 1920s, 3-bed, 1-bath. There used to be a garage probably, but it was torn down at some point. It's in the Allied Arts neighborhood, and we procured the parcel last spring/summer. And since then, I have worked with the planning team, first starting with Fatin. I think she moved on. Then Chris was assigned to this project, but finally Brian chipped in, and it helped a lot. It's about probably 10 months, give or take, since I started, but at least after going through multiple revisions, we are at a point when we feel confident that this is going to work. Now, when we started the project, I drove around the Allied Arts neighborhood, and I also visited the city in person. There were projects like 670 Cambridge, 750 College Avenue, and they are great houses, no doubt. But they are more like single-family homes with or without an ADU. And the perspective that I am coming from, I want to give more back in terms of number of units to solve our housing problem. And that's why 734 Partridge actually appealed to me, because it kind of gives you back 4 units instead of 1. Next slide. So having that motivation in mind, what we have come up with is, next slide. No, you went too far out. Okay, this is the proposed development. And as I said, we went through multiple design changes because we started with some, we got arborist feedback. Then we started with another one. Then we got parking feedback. Then we finally arrived at what we have today. And there are 2 homes in this lot. One is a front home, one is a rear home. That's the way we have named them. Now, each home has a main home and an ADU. For the front, the main home is predominantly on the first floor with the ADU upstairs, whereas it's kind of the opposite for the rear home with the ADU on the first and main home on the second floor. Both of them, we could achieve the parking standards, which is 1 covered parking plus 1 uncovered parking. We actually have 2 uncovered parkings because 1 for each ADU. And the last point that I want to meet is that it was really a struggle. I'm not saying that we are trying to do rocket science here, but it was not that straightforward to build 2 homes on a 7,000 square feet lot, giving all parkings. But we could manage everything, and we are not looking for any variance at this point. Next point. Now, obviously, like most other cities, we do want to protect trees, and Menlo Park is no exception. So as I said, we started with submission 1, where we requested for a big redwood to go away. And that redwood is actually the most precious tree, or the most beautiful tree, I should say, on the existing lot. But after getting some feedback from Jillian, we redesigned the whole thing. And we were able to achieve, we basically flipped the driveway, and we were able to achieve a design number 2 or design number 3, where we would protect the redwood, but we had to let go a few other not so important trees. And the way it stands is that we are letting go 3 heritage trees, and in that place, we are putting 4 replacement trees. Now, out of these 3 heritage trees, I just want to mention that there is one Chinese pistache, from what I come to learn from the arborist. It's a beautiful, nice tree, but the problem is that it's right in the middle of the parcel. So we tried to move things around a lot, but given its canopy size, given its existing size, there was no way we could build 2 homes with parking with that in the middle of the lot. The other 2 are not that important. I mean, every tree is important, but the other 2 are mostly like I forgot the names. It's the usual one, which is not that big or which is not that valuable. So they are mostly on the left driveway. And the only reason we are we are trying to request to get rid of it is because otherwise the driveway, the utilities are becoming very hard to put in. Now, since we talked about the development, the trees, next slide. Now comes the neighbors, which is also an important aspect. On the left, we have 662, and it's currently a rented place, but it belongs to Elizabeth or Liz. I'm not sure if most of you know her, but she happens to be the mayor of Atherton right now. And she was lovely to talk to, and I talked to her about the plans. She is very excited because on her right now, there is a new home. On her left now, there is a proposed new home. And she was actually very strongly supportive, not only of the development, but one of the trees that I'm proposing to remove is kind of shared with her. And she believes it's more of a discomfort than a beautiful tree. So we both agreed that we probably need to move on. On the right, there is Andy. I forgot his whole legal name, but he's also a very nice person with his family. He's also supportive of the development. I also drove by and went to the rear parcels, but it's all construction site right now. It's like 10 or 14 new homes coming up. So I have no idea who the owner is, and I didn't get a chance to talk to them. Next slide. For the architectural style, the Cambridge Avenue, when I drove around it, I saw that most of the new homes are more like Spanish architecture. But then when I drove around the Allied Arts neighborhood, like College, Partridge, I forgot the other roads, but I saw a lot of what you call the contemporary craftsman style with board and batten. So we really like that, and I think we would like to stick to it. That's how we came up with the plans. And we will show you in the next few slides how the homes will look like, because I think the plans have some 3D on the front page, but probably not a lot of them. So next slide. So this is how the front home would look like. We have a 1-car attached garage on the left with a driveway. Then you see there is a narrow 2-foot green strip, which kind of delineates that driveway from the other driveway. We have a little bit green going on in the front. There is not too much space. And we place the windows such that it kind of gels well with the rest of the neighborhood. So we have a decent, we could afford the most decent home that we could think of in this narrow, because it's a 60 feet wide frontage. And if you take out 14 feet driveway on the left, there is only so much you can do on the right. So I think this looks decent to us, and it will come up well. This is the rear home, which actually spans the whole 60 feet wide, leaving apart side yards on the right and the left. So over here, you see like there is a 1-car attached garage on the left, and I think there is a ADU kitchen or living room on the right. We tried to place the windows such that it looks nice from the front. So that is why you see that 3 long windows followed by on the second floor, followed by 3 short windows on the lower part. And the part that I wanted to talk about is both these homes. If you see, it's probably, okay, we'll talk about it later and go to the next one. This is how the relative placement looks like from the bird's eye view. So you have a front home, you have a driveway, you reach the rear home. And if you go to the next slide, this is, for example, the space between the 2 homes. So what we are trying to do, if you see in the plans, I mean, the PDF is always very helpful, but this is probably a little more helpful where you see the actual things going on. So you have an uncovered parking on the left, you have an uncovered parking on the right. And then in the middle, I think the hedge is a little short, but we have proposed like 6 feet or 7 feet, whatever is the regular fence height. We will do a green hedge over there so that it kind of gives a little bit privacy between the 2 homes. And there is also a barn door on the right, just for the car to go in and have it kind of a closed one. And again, the car comes out, the door will remain closed, but it's not the case for the left home. I think the 3D didn't come out appropriate according to the plan, but at least it gives you a better picture on how the space between the 2 homes will look like. Now going to the next one. So to conclude, I think we need your help to approve the plans that we have presented. And if things go well, we want to break ground this summer and maybe complete by next summer. And we have from our team, myself, Afsan is there on the Zoom. Similarly, Jeannie is there. She is the lead architect. She was having some problems logging into Zoom. And we have Tista over here. And the rest of the team members, like the survey, arborist, landscape, etc., they are all in the cover sheet, but they didn't feel a need to be present at this point. And I think the last slide is thanks for all your time, questions, comments, concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Das. Before we move to public comment on this item, do any commissioners have clarifying questions for staff or the applicant? Yes, Vice Chair Silverstein.
This is a clarifying question for staff, which may bleed into the applicant. It is my understanding that California AB 2097 prohibits minimum parking requirements within a half-mile radius of high-frequency transit. And I believe that is defined as either train and light rail or a bus stop that comes within at least 15 minutes in terms of frequency. And I also believe that that is the case for the El Camino Real bus line on Middle Ave and El Camino Real, which I further believe is within a half-mile radius of this property. And so my two-part question is, one, are my assumptions correct? And then two, if so, why would there have been parking minimum concerns or considerations with this project?
Thank you for the question. Traditionally, so we have only considered the Caltrain stop to be any property within a half mile subject to AB 2097. Staff has not considered the El Camino Real bus line to be subject to AB 2097.
Is my interpretation of what of AB 2097 incorrect, or is it that it's not? I mean, the way that I read it is that it objectively should be considered, and I don't know what is up for interpretation.
Maybe I can add 2 lines to what Brian said, at least from what I understood while working with Chris. So 2097 says that you have to be within half mile of a high transit area or high transit thing like Caltrain, and or within half mile of a bus. Now, the problem is that this is just 2 homes after El Camino. So you are very right that natural intuition is that El Camino is right next door. Why can't you walk down to the bus stop? But the problem is that the bus stop that's there, I tried to do the best I could, and they needed a frequency of every 15 minutes. Then I think state law came out that you can have a frequency of every 20 minutes. But when I found out the buses that were there on El Camino, which were going up and down to the closest bus stop to the house, they were like 3 or 4 buses in the morning, and similarly 3 buses in the evening. So I think that is why it doesn't fall. So the city has a very nice PDF of parcels that are applicable for AB 2097 and parcels that are not. So unfortunately, we lucked out.
Thank you for the clarification. I'm looking at the ECR schedule on Samtrans right now, which does show 4 stops every hour from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. on weekdays. It's possible that the schedule is incorrect, but that's the way that the schedule is at least outlaid. And that's for both northbound and southbound on El Camino Real and Middle.
So I think we will have to look into the text a little bit more to give a clear answer. But at the moment, the city uses the Caltrain stop only. But we can definitely follow up about like the reasoning behind that and look at the text of the law.
That would be very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Silverstein. Do any other commissioners have clarifying questions? Commissioner Schindler.
Thank you, Chair Eric. I think in light of many of the robust conversations that happened back in December in the meeting notes that we approved earlier this meeting in the consent calendar. So that was a study session where we talked about the regulations, or it was just a study session, not a decision making, but a study session about ADU regulations. There was a great deal of dialogue about definitions. So I wanted to confirm that this would indeed be considered an attached ADU in the framework of many of the things we discussed in December, not an internal conversion or any of the other iterations that we were talking about. It's labeled as attached ADU, but I wanted to align the two discussions.
I believe you are correct. And I believe the reasoning is because each ADU is greater than 800 square feet. So they would fall under the fourth category of ADU, which is the ones that are regulated by local regulations, which would be an attached ADU.
Right. So non-state mandated,
Correct.
but also attached. As opposed, like there were many terms that were utilized in our conversation, which created a little bit of confusion. We talked about the words internal. We talked about the words attached. We talked about internal conversions, et cetera. And I was reminded of this as going through and reading the consent calendar. So I just wanted to confirm that it's an attached ADU. And you've also clarified that it's
Yes.
non-state mandated because of the size.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. May I ask one more clarifying question? Okay. This is a further question to staff. Would these lots have to go through a subdivision and be split in order to sell separately?
Yes.
Thank you. Those are my clarifying questions for now.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Schindler. I have a follow-up question. The staff report says that these ADUs are not subject to discretionary review, but given that they are more than 800 square feet in size, wouldn't that mean they are subject to discretionary review? Or am I further confused?
No, they're still not subject to discretionary review. It's just that these ADUs, our local regulations apply to them. So our
Got it.
local
Okay.
objective standards apply.
Thank you. That's a very helpful clarification. Okay, seeing no other clarifying questions, I'm going to move us into public comment. Mr. Ball, could you please provide instructions regarding public comment and start the comment period for item F1?
If you have joined remotely, please click the hand icon, or if you're calling in, press *9 on your keypad. Staff will call on speakers and unmute you. For those here in person, please complete a speaker card at the back of the room and hand it to me. We have no commenters online, and I do not have any comment cards, but we can wait a moment longer if you'd like.
Thanks. I think there's been enough time, so I'm going to close public comment for item F1 and move us into commission discussion and ultimately a motion regarding the use permit. Would any commissioners like to begin that discussion? Yes, Commissioner Bruzzi.
So first of all, I appreciate what you're doing here. This is what I think a bunch of us have been hoping would happen in this zoning district. And because we do in fact need more housing, and this looks like the kind of housing that we aren't seeing a lot of yet in Menlo Park. So this is good. I found the 3D visuals actually slightly disconcerting, partly because when you look at the actual flora around the area, it isn't quite so stark. So I would have appreciated, you know, for future reference, if you're doing more projects like this, some visuals of where the actual trees, I think you said you were going to do laurels, box laurel. Anyway, it would be interesting to see where the base, where those were going to actually go. And I do agree that the pavement coverage of the lot is a little bit regrettable, and that if there were a way to make the state laws work in your favor so that there could be a little more landscaping, that would be a nice thing. But overall, I'm positively predisposed to this project.
I'm sorry. Maybe I just want to make sure I got the question right. So is your question that could I have saved the 2 trees or 3 trees?
No, these weren't questions. These were comments. This is just me talking at you. You're okay. Sorry. Yeah. I was just sharing what I like about the project and what, when I look at the project, I think, oh boy, it would be nice if it could be a little less pavement. And I think the visuals, while useful for scale perspectives, didn't show the surrounding trees and those kinds of things. So for future reference, if you do other projects like this, and you want to get fancy with your graphics, and show how they would look if they aren't like in the middle of a parking lot or something, that would be nice.
Yeah.
But you don't need to respond. I'm just sharing that feedback
Sure.
and
To be honest with
appreciation.
You actually, SB 1123 became state law last year, Jan 1st. And SB 1123 helps you to go even more dense. And we were trying to come up with ways, for example, how we could do something like that. And I think I talked to Brian and emailed back and forth. And right now the city ordinance is that it's like we'll follow state law. And the only problem is that there are so many things in the state law that I read it some way, you will read it somewhere else. So I think we'll probably just hold on to the official ordinance till it comes out, because I'm sure it will come out at some point. It's just that we need some breathing room. But we have thought of some other ways how to come up with more housing, even in small lots. So this one was R2. We just went with the existing thing. I mean, even state law is existing, but the problem is when you don't have an ordinance in place, the first application always becomes the guinea pig. And then everybody thinks, oh, why is that? Why is not this? And 1123 says that the city cannot stop you from building so-and-so units if there is no other way. The problem is, how do you prove that there is no other way? Because you have to come up with 5 designs, try to convince the planner. It doesn't work well. So that's why we just stuck to what we have today. And maybe going forward, we'll see some more and more projects which will give more and more units.
You're done. Commissioner Doe.
Thank you, Chair. In the spirit of Commissioner Baruzzi's comments, I also just have some comments to share, but generally also appreciate your desire to add more density in housing and doing the best you can with a small lot and the constraints as was understood. And so I just have some comments, and I don't think a redesign is possible or even, desired at this stage. I just noticed the artificial turf in the small amount of landscaping, and I understand is really modest because you were working with a lot of driveway and parking. And so just, I feel like there's been a number of efforts in neighboring communities, some counties, to ban artificial turf. Now, this is a much smaller than like a sports field, but just in the spirit of, even our small plot of land, a pollinator garden, something budget allowing, of course, that's not artificial. And the only other comment I had was, I don't know if it was just me, but the units with it seemed a little flip-flop. The units with the 2 bedrooms had kind of like a kitchenette almost, with like a 2 burner stove and a very narrow 5-foot kitchen, and the 1 bedroom units had like the full kitchen. And I understand, again, you were working with space constraints on the site, but it did just, the logic seemed a little flip-flop, and just in my eyes, but that doesn't undermine my support for what you're trying to do here.
Okay. I can address both comments. So the first comment about the artificial turf, we have some artificial turf in the front and some in the back. And I too love natural green grass. But the reality is that we don't have a water problem now, but we had a water problem 5 years back. And we might have a water problem again 5 years later. Nobody knows. And when these water problems start, then all these grass goes dead and nobody likes grass. And that's why we stuck to turf. Your question was on artificial turf, right?
That was one of my comments.
One of my comments, okay. And the second comment was regarding the kitchen size. So I think we could do what we could do. And I also verified with building. I think JOM was there. For example, if planning has any guidance on kitchen, they say they don't have any guidance on kitchen, but building does. And building gave me certain specifications of what a kitchen needs to have. And we tried to design around it. Now, you do have a valid comment that you are giving a big kitchen to a 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, whereas a very small kitchen to 2 bedrooms. But what we think of the ADUs as, even if you see in the design, the ADUs are probably not the typical ones, or 1 bedroom, 1 bath, which you rent it out to a single person or to 2 students or something. These are probably going to be used in little different ways. In other words, let's say you have your returning kids after college, they are between jobs or still no jobs, they want to live with their parents, but they need a separate space. Or let's say you have your parents who need their separate space, but who don't mind sharing with you a few things. Or maybe you just want to rent it out by the room because Stanford is just like 1 mile away. So I think maybe we should look at it at that perspective, that ADU is not necessarily a 1 bed, 1 bath to be rented out. It's probably serves different purposes for different families.
Thank you.
Commissioner Farrick.
Thank you. Do you plan to rent these out to 4 separate tenants?
2 separate tenants.
4 separate tenants for
4
4
separate
units.
Families, yes, but again, it depends on your needs. So I think at this point, we are trying to say, for example, there are 4 units. Now, whether that 2 unit means extended family or aged children or even a renter, we don't know. But it's just that we could come up with something which might serve 2 other needs.
So they'd have 2 separate leases for 2 separate units?
Yes, so
It's
everything
not,
is
everything's
what we
designed
call-
for 2 single-family homes. It's
Correct.
really obvious that it's 2 single-family homes, that you've met the minimum requirements in the upstairs to call it an ADU.
Yeah, so if you see the plans, we have maintained separate entry, separate everything for the ADU. So basically what it means is that, let's say you are a very small family with no kid, and you think I'm happy with my 1 bedroom, then you might stay in that 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom downstairs. And if you have 3 rooms upstairs, so you might rent it out to 3 Stanford staff and students.
There's lots of scenarios. I hate to cut in.
There are
I
lots of scenarios,
understand
exactly.
what you're trying to say, but I just want to be clear that I understand what you're trying to do. Thank you.
I am trying to build 4 units where people can use it the way they think best. Whether it will be rented, whether it will be extended family, whether it will be used by themselves.
Understood. Thank you. I'm done.
Commissioner Schindler.
Thank you, Chair Eric. Having reviewed the project and all of the details, like other commissioners have mentioned, I am inclined to support. I'm in favor of always of expanding the number of housing units that are available to the city. And whether this ends up being 2 families with unique characteristics or 4 distinct units, it's better than having just a single unit. So I am inclined to support based on everything that I've read and all the discussion that is happening here today. But as you interestingly alluded to, the first of anything tends to sort of become the guinea pig. So I actually would like to take this opportunity to ask some clarifying questions of staff, building on the discussion that we had in December where we reviewed some possible modifications or just some of the nuances in the ADU regulation. Again, that was a beneficial conversation, which we revisited today in the consent calendar. So I have some questions here. Could you remind us what the current regulations are that govern internal accessibility between the main house and the ADU? This was part of our December discussion, but it was still left with a little bit of subjectivity / ambiguity in my mind.
So the current regulations allow for an internal access between the ADU and the main home. However, the 2025 building code or California residential code now requires a shared accessory room in order to have that access, which I think there was a little paragraph in the staff report about, and our building official has made some interpretations around the dimensions of that room and what is required of that room because it's pretty vague in the building code or the residential code. But our current local ordinance does allow for internal access.
I'm sorry, I believe I actually coughed literally in the middle of your, does or does not allow for?
Does allows internal access, our
Okay.
current ordinance.
Only with the accessibility room though, or does it allow for it without the accessibility room also?
For every project that is under the 2025 building code, it requires the accessory room. And because so our local ordinance does not actually go into that detail. It just has to comply with the building code.
Okay. And that applies to all projects from this point forward?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Commissioner Schindler, I had a similar question. So while we're on this topic, if I could just, my question was, my recollection from the December discussion is that the new ADU ordinance that staff drafted for that meeting suggested at least that internal access would be prohibited. If the ordinance as discussed in that meeting passed, would these ADUs then not be allowed?
A future proposal would not be allowed. All projects.
Sorry, what I mean is if this project was proposed after that passed.
Yes. Yeah. The municipality can choose to prohibit the internal access. So anything. So sorry if I'm complicating it. Future, any project that applied after that ordinance was adopted would not be able to have internal access if that is what the city moves forward with.
I'd
Okay.
just like to clarify one thing, to just add on to what Brian is saying, is that it's a building code question. So generally the building official has the discretion to interpret the building code, and the city's building official interprets the building code to prohibit internal access in the 2025 building code. So that's why moving forward, that is not going to be allowed for ADUs. So I hope that clarifies, but that ordinance is still being adopted, but I just wanted to clarify that it's a building code interpretation question. Is that?
Miriam, that's
Yeah.
actually our building official has interpreted that it is allowed with the accessory room.
With the accessory room. Okay.
Yes.
Because, okay, I'm sorry about that then that must have changed. Okay, so we can clarify that with the next draft of the ordinance. And then I just wanted to add that generally, when the public hearing is closed, I think the applicant had a chance to respond and engage with the commission. So I just wanted to say that if there was another item on the agenda here, then the opportunity given to the applicant to engage directly with the commission would be, you would have to extend that to every applicant on every item. So it's up to the chair, of course, how you want to run the meeting. But I just wanted to make that note if you wanted to, keep engage when you open it up after the public hearing, after public comments closed. You have to do that for everyone. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware of that.
Okay, I don't want to extend this further, but that comment is confusing to me because throughout my time on the planning commission, we have often asked questions of the applicant and during commission discussion, and the applicant has been able to respond to those questions. Are you saying?
It's really up to you. If you do it once, you have to do it for everyone. And I just wanted to it's just about being consistent. And here there's only one item, so it's really not a big deal. I just wanted to clarify that you don't have to take a response on every, unless you have a question for the applicant, you are allowed to ask the applicant, but you don't have to take a response for every comment that you make. If you do that, you have to open it up to everyone for every item. Does that make sense?
Understood. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted Commissioner Schindler, and I will turn it back to her.
Thank you. I think it bears just complete clarification. So what we understand to be the case is that when the 2025 building regulations become effective for Menlo Park,
They are currently effective.
they are in effect. And when they are interpreted by our building department, we believe that they allow for a specific kind of internal access And that specific kind of internal access involves an accessory room. It does not allow for a single door between the ADU and the main house, which is let's call it the simpler version of internal access that we have seen in many other proposals up until this point. So that is no longer permissible. It has to
correct.
be internal access, a flavor of internal access, which involves the accessory room.
That's correct.
Okay, so it could be an accessory room or no access between the two. Both of those would be allowable.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. All right, moving on. In our December conversation, we had a representative here from West Bay Sanitation who spoke in public comment, and he specifically called our attention to the importance of having different, distinctly different and differently billable sanitation lines for a main house versus an ADU. And it brought up a line of thinking that was new to me, sort of intuitive. It made sense when he brought it up, but I hadn't sort of had it front of mind for either sanitation or for other utilities. These plans talk about, at least in one case, having a shared water heater. So my question to staff is, do we expect to move in the direction, so this is as it relates to ADU regulation and can potentially for consideration here, is it important to have different utilities for the ADU and the main house?
So we don't know at the moment, other than what the utilities require of a main house and ADU on their end. We don't really have an answer at the moment, but Karina might be able to.
Yeah, so we're working on updates to the ordinance based on feedback from the study session, but we haven't worked out all those details yet. But we will be bringing that back relatively soon.
Okay, thank you. So it's a work in progress. As it stands right now, it's not a requirement that a main house and an ADU have distinctly different utilities.
It's all up to the utility provider.
Okay.
So West Bay Sanitary, PG&E, it's all their discretion.
Okay. And is the same true with regard to a front house versus a back house? Like there are two distinct structures here.
I think that would probably be something that we would have to follow up on, because I believe that's more in the realm of the building code. So we can do a little research on that and follow up on that.
Okay. Thank you. This is probably going to get the same answer, but if the lot were subdivided, and to enable them to be sold, the two different structures to be sold independently, would they be required to have fully independent utilities?
Not between the main house and the ADU, but I think it's going to be a similar to the other one. I would have to check on the building code about that piece.
Between the front house, and to be clear, I want to clarify my question. Between the front house and the back house, I'm assuming that's where the subdivision would happen. So would the front house and the back house have to have their own independent utilities in order to be subdivided?
Yeah, I think certainly they would be billed separately. I'm not sure exactly how all the connections would work, but there wouldn't be a shared billing.
Okay, I think that's the direction that I was thinking about. I know that at this point, there hasn't been an application for a subdivision because it's not mentioned in the staff report. But I think that there was some discussion of, the nature of my thought is whether or not that will happen. I don't feel like it's important to what the Planning Commission is being asked to do tonight. But I am asking some of these questions for sort of furthering the knowledge of myself and the Planning Commission, because we expect these ADU regulations to come up again. and because I suspect that the public has an interest in knowing the kinds of things that we're thinking about. So, shoot, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. Oh, here we go. The floor area limit. So when it gets into the allowable floor area, because each unit has an attached ADU, it has the ability to exceed the floor area limit by 800 square feet. And each of the building structures, the front and the back, are slightly different sized. But for the purposes of this decision today, we're thinking about all of the square feet together and thinking about them in terms of the parcel. So if this parcel were to be subdivided, how would we think about the zoning, I'm trying not to use the word permitted, the allowed square footage under zoning versus the planned and built square footage with the inclusive of the 800 square foot ADU allowance?
So the way that it would be subdivided would be in a condo map. So it would be very focused on ownership. And I don't know if Karina wants to go into a little more detail, but we still think of the floor area as the whole lot. So it's not that like each lot it's not like two lots in front and back. It's like a map that would show ownership, like a common ownership area and individual ownership of each structure. But the lot is still one lot.
Okay, thank you. I think conceptually I understand that. I cannot recall an example that we've seen of a subdivision like that during my time on the Planning Commission, but I may just not be remembering. If there's any more color that Ms. Sandoval could shed on that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, so a 2-unit map wouldn't need to go to Planning Commission. That's probably why you haven't seen any. Yeah, so that would be done at staff level. Or no? Maybe I need to double check that. But it's not part of the proposal at the moment. So.
Okay. I think I'll hold my remaining question for a minute and give other commissioners a chance to ask questions.
Okay, I have a question. Well, first of all, I'll just say I think this is a very cool concept. Also, you're welcome to sit down and we'll call you back up. If you would like to stay standing, I won't stop you. But I do think this is a very cool concept. Thank you for the work that has gone into it. I do have a question for staff. During the applicant presentation, there was a discussion of parking requirements and the fact that there's no variance being requested right now. If the applicant did want to say only have the garages and not have uncovered parking, is it within the way that city law, the functioning of city law and city ordinances as they are currently written, that staff could bring such a project to the Planning Commission and ask that the Planning Commission approve a variance?
I'm going to take a shot at it and see if Karina, Ms. Sandmeyer will correct me. In theory, yes. But in general, a variance, the variance findings usually have something to do with the uniqueness of a lot. So that it's a little bit difficult if there's some sort of proposal like this where they can show the compliant parking to recommend approval of a variance that doesn't have compliant parking. So in theory, yes, the Planning Commission has the discretion to grant a variance for something like that, but it can be a little bit it can get, it's whether there's 5 findings that have to be made, whether the planning commission feels they can make those findings. And it can be a little bit tricky with with whether it really is something unique to the lot, and having a proposal that is doable and compliant makes it more difficult to grant a variance, but I'm not sure if you want to add
Okay,
anything.
I think I understand
Okay.
what you're saying. The reason I asked the question is that several commissioners have commented that there's a lot of asphalt in this project. A lot of that asphalt is to accommodate the parking requirement. And so I was thinking in my mind, well, if we didn't require the uncovered parking space and just required the garage, then there was a whole lot more options for landscaping that do not involve asphalt. And so I'm going to ask a variant of that question. Could the planning commission decide tonight to grant a variance and say, we approve this project and we will allow any design that does not have uncovered parking where there's currently uncovered parking? I'm not asking whether or not you think we should. I'm asking whether we can under city law.
That wouldn't be possible tonight because it's something the applicant has to apply for, and it has to be part of the public hearing notice. So if the applicant wanted to apply, it would have to come back to another planning commission meeting, and obviously the findings would have to be made, which are pretty stringent for a variance.
Okay,
I have a variant on that variant.
go ahead, Commissioner Farrick.
I do think there could potentially be flexibility in the materials chosen for the parking space that might not require asphalt at all. And, like the mealy ground or the pavers with grass growing through it kind of options, just to make sure the applicant's aware of that desirability.
I think that's a fair point. Without getting into variance law, what I will say to staff is that, and I've made this point before, it is often represented by staff that there are objective things that need to be met in order to do a certain thing. I do not believe that the way staff represents that is fair. Often in this project itself, we deemed that it was okay to remove a heritage tree because we thought it was important to allow these things to be built. So I would encourage staff in the future to be more lenient or creative or whatever word you want to use in bringing variances to the planning commission that would help further the goals that we all talk about here, building more units, not having as much asphalt, et cetera. And I would encourage you to not see the variance requirements quite as stringently, given how we treat them with regards to heritage trees and other things. And in particular, because this project is located very close to downtown, close to transit corridors, it's quite obviously desirable to have more units on this lot and to not require parking. And so this would seem to be a great example of a place where a variance could be really appropriate given the city's goals. And I'm disappointed that we didn't pursue that tonight. Vice Chair Silverstein.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question on variance law, just in terms of the mechanics. If an applicant applies for a variance as part of their permit process, are those 5 findings required to be found by staff themselves before presenting it to the planning commission? Or would that variance automatically be attached regardless of staff's interpretation of whether or not we should grant the variance, and it would be up to the discretion of the commission to do so or not?
Yeah, staff doesn't approve the variance. So if we didn't believe the findings could be made, I mean, we work with the city attorney's office since these are legal findings. But if we don't believe the findings can be made, we would bring it with potentially a recommendation for denial.
Fair, but it would still go to the planning commission to interpret that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fair. Thank you. And
Sorry, I just want to follow up on that. Without getting into other examples, I have heard of other applications where applicants have asked staff to bring something to the planning commission for a variance and staff has denied that request. So I just want to clarify what you're saying, that if an applicant applies for a variance, staff will bring that to the planning commission with the potentially language that says, we don't recommend approving this variance. But I want to clarify what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. If someone applies, as staff doesn't have discretion to say no.
Okay. Thank you.
And then
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Thank you. Just on the subject of parking, I know I asked this in my clarifying questions, but I do want to mention this as part of the comment period. And I'm not a transportation lawyer, but I do feel like staff's current interpretation of AB 2097 is incorrect as it pertains to what a high transit or a high quality transit corridor is, and that the El Camino Real bus line should apply to that, as I'm reading the literal text of the bill during this meeting. So I would encourage you to revisit that, and I'm happy to cite specific lines or specific language that would show that the ECR bus line and those bus stops, which are within a half mile of this specific project, as well as I'm sure plenty of other projects in the pipeline, should not have any required parking requirements as per California state law.
Yes, we'll certainly look into that. Thank you.
Commissioner Farrick.
Thank you. First, I just want to apologize for my rude interruption of you earlier. That's not the decorum that I typically have, and I just wanted to say sorry. I do want to also make a comment just to clarify my position on this project. I support that there's 4 units here, but I just really regret that it's not designed for 4 independently functioning units. It's really 2 single-family homes. And yes, you can kind of, yes, lots and lots of scenarios and lots of types of housing. And I also totally support the idea that irrespective of what the material they use, that space will be used for yard. So I don't think we need to get too caught up in it. And I don't know that the variance findings could be met to counteract that when it's obviously able to be designed there, because we've just seen it designed there. So anyway, I agree with the spirit of what you're trying to do. I also agree that I would like to see more variances come to us so that we could have a robust discussion about these things. I do feel like a lot of what comes has been fully baked to the point of just rubber stamp, and so it's frustrating. And I think one reason I was, upset earlier is that it just doesn't, it feels disingenuous to pretend these aren't 2 single-family houses that could be used as 4 units, and just say it, like, that's fine. If it's 2 big single-family homes, that's fine. But why? So I think that's what I'm, not happy about, but nevertheless support that we need the housing units and that maybe in the future there can be some remodeling to make them actually 4 usable separate units. So I will plan to vote to support it, but I don't like this one.
I will just say, Commissioner Farrick, what I was trying to express was exactly the spirit that I think you more eloquently expressed, that I would love to see us apply more potential creativity. Whether or not it could be applied in this case, I don't know. But I do want to make the point to staff, because you are the gatekeepers here, that we talk all the time about the need to increase housing. We talk all the time about the need to reduce parking requirements. And it seems that there are at least 1, if not 2 options here for not requiring the parking that is currently required in this project. And it's disappointing to me that staff is not looking for ways to enable that. It seems that what staff, and I'm sorry for directing this at you, but you are the gatekeepers, this is your job. It seems to me what you are doing in this case and in other cases is taking the most conservative, the most restrictive interpretation of anything that comes to us, rather than leaning forward and asking us to make the findings ourselves, which I think would be appropriate given the goals of the city and given the fact that these laws are, as we've talked about tonight, evolving quite quickly. And so I understand that you want to do your due diligence and you want to talk to the city attorney and the building official, et cetera, and you should absolutely do that. But the planning commission is here for a reason, and it is to interpret, or not interpret, it is to think of what is in the best interests of the city. And right now, it doesn't feel like you are allowing us to do our job and think about what is in the best interest of the city. And I would encourage you to do that much more fulsomely. Commissioner Peruzzi.
Okay, I guess we're doing this. So I will just share, I rode with a city attorney up to the city on a train the other day. And I want to express some sympathy for staff because the city attorney said, man, the state housing laws, they just keep coming, they don't undo each other. It's very, very complicated to try to understand how they interact and which parts of them negate other laws that we had. And it's just sort of a patchwork and it's hard. I will say, though, that in this case, the thing that I'm thinking about now is the map. So we know because we have precedent, anybody who's trying to rebuild or redevelop in the city can tell that, you know, we let people take down heritage trees and we let them replace them with other things. There's a precedent for that. These laws are kind of new. But it does seem as though if we're publishing a map with a helpful circle that shows where people are not responsible for following, where the parking minimums don't apply, we should probably make sure that map's correct because that means that maybe they're not even going to ask. And so it's not just that he didn't ask, could I do less parking? Or maybe he did. It's also that you maybe proactively shared a document that implied that there was no point to even trying. So in addition to the idea that that if people want to try, we could come and we could talk about variances. I also feel like anything that's officially published by the department to share with people who are thinking about redevelopment. I know it's hard given all of the continually updating state laws, but we probably want to be super careful about being factual about that. I had a question about the landscaping because it's really bugging me. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the turf and I'm looking at the non-permeable hardscape. And the question actually through the chair is for staff. Artificial turf counts as landscaping in our world right now? Is that something that is true and normative everywhere? And is this what other municipalities do?
Everywhere, like.
Well, I mean, is that because it's not really serving some of the purposes. It's serving recreational purposes, maybe, but it's not from an ecological perspective. It's not great. And from a permeability perspective, I think maybe also not so great. And so I'm wondering if that's something at a future time we might want to discuss as we're starting to see more density on lots. I think starting to rethink what our hardscape, softscape requirements are and starting to think more creatively about, grass versus turf are not the only options. There's a really cool house across the street from me that has some kind of, I don't know, it's like truffalo tree type thing that's low water and it's very pretty and green. And I think there's, you can do native plants. There's a lot of options. And I just think that maybe as a commission, as we're thinking forward to the eventual densification, I would like staff potentially to bring us better options for landscaping requirements and hardscape requirements. Sorry, I'm not articulating this well, but perhaps we could revisit those.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Just a very quick response to Commissioner Peruzzi's question on whether or not it was generally considered that turf would be considered landscaping. I'm not a landscape expert, but I am pretty good at Google in terms of finding municipal code. And there is a California bill that has passed that defines drought-tolerant landscaping. Just saying that's something that we passed, and very specifically called out in that bill is that drought-tolerant landscaping does not include artificial turf or synthetic grass. So to answer your question on whether or not it's generally considered, there is precedent, or at least there are contexts in which the state does not consider turf to be landscaping in this context. Thank you.
I'll also just add to Commissioner Bruzzie's first comment that I also have a lot of empathy for staff. And what I would say is, given that these laws are evolving so quickly, you can use the Planning Commission if you're not sure, or if you're not sure whether or not the city wants to go in a particular direction. That's what we're here for. That's what we're appointed for. And so I have a lot of empathy, but I would also ask you to collaborate with us more along the way as we figure this out together. Commissioner Schindler.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, I have a follow-up question for staff along the lines of the topic that Commissioner Farrick eloquently sort of spelled out for us, and that we've had at multiple times in the past, which is this intersection of a main house and an AD attached, I'm going to get my vocabulary correct, ADU. And I think, again, this is not specific to this project, but it is my thinking and my line of questioning falls from looking at this plan and intersecting it with the conversation back in December. But if a property like this were to be approved, and at some point further down the line, and it could be like this house were subdivided and sold, and a future owner decided to essentially deconstruct the accessory room and merge the two structures, essentially, or not the two structures, the two units, merge the ADU and merge the main house. I'm curious about what comes downstream of that. So, for example, I know that there are some forms of remodeling and renovation that do require permission from the city. So, for example, like if they wanted to enclose one of the landings that existed in a house like this one, it would be expanding the floor area. So given, like in that scenario, and the house and the main house and the ADU are no longer distinctly different, what would the evaluation process look like from the city?
So the city would, in that scenario, likely deny the building permit, because all of those scenarios would require a building permit, and staff would refer back to what's on file and see that without this being a main home and an ADU, it exceeds the floor area limit, and would deny the building permit based on that.
Okay, thank you. So they would deny the building permit that would be expanding the floor area. For the example I gave was enclosing the landing.
That's correct.
And if there were a proposed renovation that didn't expand the floor area, so for example, a significant remodel that represented more than, I forget what the percentage of the home value of the home is, but if it were a significant remodel, would that also be declined?
It's a little hard without a plan, but if the ADU floor area and the main house floor area remain the same, just a building permit would be required, and it wouldn't matter the value because we consider this a conforming structure. The value would only come into play if it was a non-conforming structure.
Okay, so it would be considered a conforming structure even though it was over the floor area limit at that point? Because the distinction between the two units has been removed.
This is, sorry, that's only if there's no, like, if somebody wanted to remodel the main house, remodel the ADU, keep them as two separate units.
Okay, I see. And if a future owner had decided to merge the two of them, it would be considered non-conforming.
They just would not be able to, because you can't create a non-conforming structure. because currently the structure is conforming.
Mhm.
And so they would not be able to, the building permit would be denied because they would be creating a non-conforming structure.
I see. The
At
building,
that point
the
in
building
time.
permit for removing the accessory room, or for, what if, I'm not being very precise here. If the accessory room were removed without a building permit, would future building permits then be denied?
We can, basically, we would go with what plans we have on file. And so if somebody did that, it would be unpermitted work. And so, yes, the future building permit would be denied, I believe. I don't know if,
Yeah, if I can add to that. So if I understand the scenario, if someone connected the main house and ADU by taking out the accessory room, then they would be required to put it back. It wouldn't become a non-conforming building. That would be unpermitted work that would have to be brought back into compliance with an accessory room.
Got it. So if future work were desired to be done, it could only be done on a conforming structure.
Yes, any work that made the structure non-conforming would have to be undone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you entertaining my high level of abstraction, but thank you. It's very helpful thought process. Not for this project specifically, because I'm prepared to support and vote in support of this project exactly as it is without any of these hypotheticals. But I know this will come up in the future.
Okay. Without being presumptuous, it seems like we are ready for a motion, if anyone would like to make one. Commissioner Schindler.
I move that we approve the resolution to grant the use permit for this project.
Commissioner Doe.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second, and therefore I will call the vote on this item F1. Commissioner Baruzzi.
Yes.
Commissioner Doe.
Yes.
Commissioner Farrick.
Reluctantly, yes.
Commissioner Schindler.
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Yes.
I am also a yes, so we have 6 votes in favor with 1 absent. Item F1 passes. Thank you very much. We will now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is informational items. Ms. Sandmeyer, would anyone from staff wish to provide an update on upcoming Planning Commission meetings and agendas? Sorry, I'm sorry. I don't know that we're permitted to respond after it ends. Thank you.
Thank you. So to update, the next meeting will be March 9th. We have a couple of items on there. We have a single family home, a commercial project, and then the general plan APR. It's the annual progress report. And then the March 23rd meeting, the agenda hasn't been finalized, but we have some tentative items on there. That concludes my updates, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Last year, we were informed that at some time in this winter or spring, we would receive an item around updating our substandard zoning code. I'm wondering if staff has an update around when we would potentially see that come on the agenda.
Yeah, I can look into that and provide an update to the commission.
But not at this time.
Not at this time.
Thank you.
I had a similar question, perhaps unsurprisingly, so I will follow up. In a previous Planning Commission meeting during informational items, I provided an informational item about correspondence I had had with staff that updates a study session with updates to the SB9 ordinance, as well as substandard lots, was planned for the first quarter of this year. March 9th and March 23rd are the final planning commission meetings of the first quarter of this year. So I was going to ask, given that it does not seem that that study session is on the agenda for the March 9th meeting, is it reasonable to expect that it will be on the agenda for the March 23rd meeting?
I'm sorry, Chair Eric, could you repeat the question? Was that about which study session was that?
I have correspondence with several members of staff, including yourself, where you say, we'll evaluate substandard lots along with updates to the SB 9 ordinance, since it makes the most sense to evaluate those together. And I asked, when does staff anticipate the discussion of updates to the SB 9 ordinance? And you said, we are aiming for a study session in the first quarter of 2026.
Yes, so right now we're looking, this hasn't been, obviously the agenda hasn't been published, but we're looking at the ADU ordinance update on potentially March 23rd, and then SB 9 on April 13th. But obviously that's a little farther out, so I understand we were aiming for first quarter.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from commissioners on those informational items? Okay, in that case, this meeting is adjourned at 8:23 p.m.